MES English Medium Junior College welcome its students for the lecture of philosophy for Standard 12. For the chapter 1, there is something, but what it is. For the topic, modern philosophy. Students, in the previous lecture of philosophy, we have studied about two topics, that is Western metaphysics, and about the two of the Western philosophers, that is Plato and Aristotle. In Western metaphysics, we have studied that Western philosophy starts somewhat 2500 years ago. And these philosophers observed the origin of the universe. And their thought process about discussion of this universe has given the result of today's world. There we have studied about the permanence and the impermanence natures related to reality. One of the Western philosophers named Parmenides, according to him, permanence was regarded as a distinctive characteristic of reality. He believed that anything in relation to which we can use the term as is not, was not, or will not be cannot really exist. Whereas we have seen another philosopher, Heraclitus, who was completely opposite to the viewpoint of Parmenides. According to him, change is the essential characteristic of reality. He says reality is constantly changing. Whereas another philosopher, Empedocles, according to him, four basic elements, namely earth, water, fire and air, due to attraction and repulsion of these things, the formation of and the integration and disintegration, the world is shaped. Later on, we have seen that Democritus and materialistic, according to him, items exist in the nature, which are constantly moving in the vacant place in this universe. They differ in shape and size. There is no qualitative difference, but the constant motion and different shape they become interconnected with and give rise to various objects which have different properties. Then we have seen about two different Western philosophers. One was Plato and another is Aristotle. According to Plato, he states that the world is permanent, impermanent, and is constantly changing, and the only unchanging truth. Plato tries to recoil both this view into his theory of two worlds. He has given the existence of form world depends on the world of form. Coming to Aristotle, he completely rejects the notion of independent world of form. He thinks that the world is experience, world we experience is the only only world that exists, existence and will exist. Change occurs in this world, and he discussed the kind and the cause of this change in his theory of causality. So this was what we have discussed in the previous lecture. In today's lecture, we are going to study about the topic modern philosophy. Students, coming to the topics of today's lecture. In today's lecture, we are going to study about the phrase first chapter, that is, there is something but what it is. But we are going to cover the topic of modern philosophy, and we are going to discuss about the four modern philosophers, namely Descartes, Spinoza, Leibniz, and Hegel. Let's study each of their philosophical thoughts in detail. Modern philosophy. In medieval as well as modern philosophy, the concept of substance was considered important in metaphysics. As we have seen before, the category of substance does not depend on anything else, whereas other categories depend on substance for their existence. To take the previous example, orange color, the round shape, the sour and sweet taste are all properties of orange. Color, shape, mass, taste cannot exist at all unless they belong to something. In modern philosophy, we are going to study about the different philosophers like Descartes, Spinoza, and Leibniz. They all were rationalist philosophers. Rationalists are people who claim that we have innate knowledge of mathematics. The concept of innate too is not gained by experience. Rationalists often contrast with imperialists. However, the two views, that is rationalists and imperialists, are not mutually exclusive. A philosopher can be both a rationalist and an imperialist. Some rationalists argue that if we start from the basic principles such as axioms of geometry, we can derive the rest of all possible knowledge. Descartes is one such philosopher. So let's study about Rani Descartes. Rani Descartes. Descartes was a French philosopher. He is a founder of rationalism. Descartes believed that we are born with knowledge of certain ideas. He called these as innate ideas. From Descartes, the idea of God, mathematics, and geometrical principles are innate ideas. A French philosopher, René Descartes, is also known as father of modern philosophy. He defined the substance as that which exists independently. You studied the method of doubt of Descartes last year. Using this method of doubt, Descartes arrived at the indubitable truth. I think, therefore I am. However, after deeply studying over the question, who I am, Descartes accepts dualism. As per the prevailing belief, thinking and function related to it are not of the body, but of the mind. The intellect, emotion and desire are rooted in the mind. This means that the I that Descartes proved exists indubitably is the mind. But in reality we use the word I for our existence, which includes both the body and the mind. So, Descartes accepts dualism. According to him, the mind and the body are two different things, but when we speak about ourselves, we do not use our mind, but we use the word I, as it indicates both the body and the mind. Descartes has exerted that the body and the mind are two separate entities. The body is made of material substance and is physical in nature. Material substance exists in both time and space and is experienced by sense. These are the essential characteristics of matter. On the controversy, the mind or the soul, whose nature is consciousness, does not occupy space, and it cannot be experienced by senses. Descartes includes that the universe consists of two independent substances, corporeal substance and incorporeal substance, which has opposite attributes. Here, one has to take into account the matter of consciousness are independent to each other. Their existence does not depend on anything, but they are not self-dependent. Both the substances are created by God. Therefore, our above mentioned definition of substance given by Descartes is applicable only to God. But in the world created by God, we can call matter and consciousness as a substance in a limited sense. But their existence does not depend on each other. Descartes' metaphysical advocate dualism and realism. Spinoza. Spinoza held that starting with foundational basic principles like the axioms of geometry and could deductively derive the rest of the possible knowledge. Spinoza asserted that the principle all knowledge includes scientific knowledge could be gained through use of reason alone. Thought he observed that this was not possible for human beings in practice except in specific areas such as mathematics. Spinoza recognized the limitation of human capacity in understanding the empirical facts. Spinoza has a logic entailment. Descartes was followed by a philosopher named Spinoza in this rationalist tradition. However, he rejected Descartes' dualism and proposed monism. The arguments he offered were based on Descartes' definition of substance itself. Spinoza urged that if knowledge of the substance does not depend on anything else for its existence, then there should be no need of knowledge for anything else for acquiring complete knowledge of it. Nevertheless, what we experience as we try to gain complete knowledge of an object is that we also have to obtain information of objects related to it. If we wish to know what a pen is, we need to know the paper on which the pen is to be used, the word or the language that it writes, the people who can read it, This list can always be extended. In short, all the objects in the world appear to be directly or indirectly related to each other. Likewise, they depend on each other. Spinoza asserted that all these objects, in fact, everything that exists, is a part of a single, fundamental, limitless, eternal, infinite reality. This fundamental reality is called God or nature by himself. According to Spinoza, it is the only and one principle that prevails in the universe and everything that exists in it. This was the view, and he was also known as pantheism. Coming to another modern philosopher, Leibniz. For Leibniz, knowledge is a system of universal and necessary truth, which is not derived from experience. Universe is a mathematical order that reason alone can explain it. All human knowledge lies implicit in the mind. It is brought out, cleared up, and made us understand through experience. In this way, Leibniz accepts innate ideas, which is the unique feature of rationalism. Leibniz is the third philosopher who accepted the concept of substance discussed above. He proposed pluralism, rejected both Descartes' dualism and Spinoza monism. Like an ancient atomistic, Leibniz that if we keep dividing the divisible object into parts, we may end up reaching fundamental indivisible substance called atom. However, he urged that this item can neither completely material nor physical in nature, but has a primary level of consciousness. He named this item as monad. There are infinite monads in this world, and all the non-living and living beings are created from the combination of these monads. The universe is the hierarchical structure of this monad. God is the highest monad. He has created all the monads. Although, as per the principle of mathematics, infinite combination of these numerous monads are possible. Leibniz asserted that God has created this world as the best possible world. Thus, it was he said that Leibniz combines pluralism and idealism. So this was Leibniz's point of view. Coming to the last topic of today's lecture, we are going to study about another modern philosopher named Hegel. Like Parmenides and Spinoza, Hegel also advocates monism. But his monism was different in nature. Parmenides accepts concept of ultimate reality has no room of motion, change and time. Whereas, according to Spinoza, the fundamental principle has infinite attributes. It is impossible for human beings to know all of them, as human intelligence has limitations. Everything in this universe is related and interdependent because there is one and only and the same fundamental reality at its root. Whereas Hegel believed that the entire universe is created by this principle, and he called this principle as absolute. The absolute is one, the existence of which is not relative to existence of anything else. It is that which absolutely is. It is not material. Hegel believed it is consciousness. He has considered it to be the nature of reason. In other words, this absolute is as if the fundamental power of force which is rational. It is also dynamic in nature. Many possibility exists in it in a dormant form. The aim of this absolute is to realize itself by actualizing all of its potentiality. It is in this process that the universe is manifested. The absolute manifestation itself in the form of matter and the universe evolve gradually. This evolution has a specific pattern. This is known as dialectics. It means that from the conflict and two opposite principles, another matter principle emerges. Subsequently, a principle opposite to this third one emerges, and there is again a conflict between the two, giving rise to new principle. According to this pattern, Hegel believes the universe keeps evolving. So this is the viewpoint of the modern philosopher, that is Rene Descartes, Spinoza, Leibniz and Hegel.